All right. So hello, my name is Brittany Lind. For those that I haven't met, I'm the college counselor at Portsmouth High School. And tonight's webinar, we're going to be focusing on the application and some of the common, pitfalls and common things that you should be aware of as you're kind of starting the application process. So, I want to start off by saying you don't need to be starting your Common App right now. For those that I've met with, that my big thing that I stress right now is to be focusing on building your list of where you're going to apply, and also worrying about your standardized tests. But I wanted to get this webinar done sooner rather than later so that students that are ready to kind of start this process in late spring and summer to kind of pick away at pieces of it and take a look at it and get familiar with it could do that. But this video will be recorded and posted to the junior Google Classroom, the school counseling Google Classroom, so that it can be used as an on-demand format also. So when you're ready to really get into that piece of things and start your applications, you can go back and watch this again to be able to kind of begin that process. So, the first piece that I talk about when it comes to applications is know for all of the students that are on that you are going to have to use Naviance as part of the application process. And I will do a separate video that I will post at the beginning of the year because I actually prefer that you don't link your accounts and stuff until we get into the school year. So I will post all of the stuff that's specific to Naviance in a different video in probably late August. For you guys to be able to go through and do step-by-step what you need to do in Naviance. I also have a whole presentation that I post to the Google Classroom that has all the steps written out so that you can kind of be going through those things as you need to. But know that you do need to link if you are using the Common App, you do need to link your Common App and your Naviance accounts. The school sends all of your materials, your transcripts, your letters of recommendation, the school profile, all through Naviance. So it is a necessary part of the process, even if you haven't used Naviance a lot in the past. So if you can't get into your Naviance account, please email me before the summer so that I can reset it for you and get you into that. Write the password down someplace so that you don't forget it. As we get into the college application process, there's going to be a lot of different websites that you have to navigate. The FAFSA website, and I'll go through all of these, the Common App website, the Naviance website, the College Board website, and they all have different standards and stuff that they want for your passwords and everything else. So just make sure that you're being consistent with that and writing all of those things down someplace where you can go back and take a look at them. So without further ado, I will share my screen and I'll show you guys kind of from the beginning, the application process in terms of your actual application that you're going to be filling out. I have a fake Common App account that I go through to show you guys what this is going to look like so you can start to see it and stuff. And we'll talk a little bit about how schools are going to look at certain areas of the application and things like that. If you have questions as we're going, please feel free to bring them up as they become relevant. You can use the question and answer function. I would prefer not to use the chat function if possible, just so I only have to monitor one thing as I'm going through. So yeah, feel free and we will get started here. All right, so the first thing that you need to do is you're going to create a Common App account. And to do that, you can just type Common App. It's commonapp.org is the website, but you can just type Common App into the search engine and it will bring you right to the website. And for first-time users, when you come into this, it's just like any other website. You're going to create an account. I've already done that, so I'm not going to go into that, but it is going to ask you for an email address and to create, obviously, a password. The email address can be your school email or personal email. It makes no difference. It doesn't matter that your Naviance account, when you go to link them, is for your school email address. So it's whichever one you want to use. Just remember which account you use because you will need to put that into Naviance to link your accounts. So I'm just going to sign in so that you guys can see what this looks like to start off with. Oops. All right. All right. And once you have created your account and everything, this is going to be the homepage that it brings you to whenever you kind of start out. And when you go to My Colleges, once you add colleges in, which I'll show you how to do, it will give you a full list of the schools that you're applying to here. You can add schools in as you want to and delete them as you want to from here. You know, there's no harm in adding in some schools that you're interested in, looking to see like what the specific questions and supplemental materials that some schools might be looking for, so that you can start to gain an understanding of your time management and what you're going to need to do for each individual school come the fall if you decide to apply there. The reason I don't have you link your accounts until the fall is because once you link your accounts, every school that you put into your Common App account is going to show up in Naviance, and you can't delete them from Naviance. I have to. It's not a big deal. It happens all the time. But in order to play with it throughout the summer, it's much easier if your accounts are not linked until we get into the school year. So you can go ahead and add schools and check things out, and we'll do that in just a second. But we're going to talk about the actual Common App first. So the Common App is made in order to allow you to fill out one common application, and so that you don't have to fill out all the basic information multiple times for every single school that you're applying to. Not every college is going to use the Common App. So when you go to the college search and you type in your college name, if your college is not on here, it means that they're not using the Common App, and you need to go to the school's website and check out how they have you applying. Most of the time, that means that they're going to have their own individual application. So you're going to have to fill all this stuff out a second time, which is a pain, but it usually goes pretty quickly. The kind of next piece is starting to fill out all the basic information. And the basic information is going to be, you know, your name, your education, your family's information, address, you know, all that good stuff. And there is also going to be a writing supplement, a Common App essay, which we'll get into as well. So the beginning sections are pretty much on you. I can answer questions if you don't know how to answer some of them, but it's all based off your personal information. The only thing I will say in terms of specific stuff under here is if you get any type of assistance, if you're on free and reduced lunch, any type of financial assistance, you are eligible for fee waivers, because pretty much every school is going to cost usually between $50 and $75 to submit your application. If you are eligible for any of those programs, you can shoot me an email and just let me know that you're going to be putting in a fee waiver, because I have to approve it. But you would do that here, and this would be for every single school. If you have a school-specific fee waiver, so sometimes colleges will send you a fee waiver and say, hey, we want you to apply here. Here's a fee waiver for you to be able to apply for free. It does not go here. So there's a separate piece that there'll be a piece school-specific that you can put in the fee waiver. This is for the Common App. So they're two different things. Just make sure that you don't get those messed up, because it kind of creates an issue on the back end. The second section is going to be the family piece. And so that, again, is more kind of on you guys to fill out, because I just don't have that information. So I can answer questions that are specific to, you know, the application and what they're looking for, but it's personal information that you guys will have. The education piece is where I really start to come in to help. So this can be a little confusing for some students. And the reason being because they ask a lot of really specific questions about like our grading scale and, you know, our schedule and different pieces like that. So when you go in, the first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to put in your high school name. And this is important that this is the first piece that you do, because it has some other issues in terms of when we get to the Naviance piece and stuff. So you have to do this, just know, before you get to a point where you can link your accounts, even if you fill nothing else out on here. Your school name has to be in here. And then, you know, there's some basic questions about like, you know, how many high schools you've attended, if you've gone to boarding school, when you started high school, when you're going to be graduating. If you are planning to graduate early senior year, they might ask you to write kind of a blurb as to like what your plans are for after graduation. You really should do that so that they know that there's a reason and what that reason is for graduating early. Other secondary high schools, this is only for students who didn't go to Portsmouth all 4 years. So if you were a Portsmouth student all 4 years, you don't need to worry about this. If you are a transfer student at some point, you're just going to put in how many other high schools you've attended, and it's going to ask those same questions up here when you attended, what the high school name was. Colleges and universities. So this is an area where you're going to put in any dual enrollment classes or classes that you took through early college. If we have any students that are taking classes at Great Bay. So this is going to be where you're going to put those courses in. And the way to do that is it's going to ask how many colleges. So if it's just Great Bay, you'll put one and it will have a place that you can type in the name. And then you're going to come down here and put dual enrollment with high school, and you're going to put the start and end date to when you had, if you had more than one course, you can put the start date from the first and the end date to the last. And you're not going to fill out the degree earned because obviously you didn't earn a degree, you're just taking individual classes. It's not a required question, so don't put anything in that section. After each piece, when you hit continue, it automatically saves. So there's no save button. You don't have to make sure that you're going to be missing work if you exit out of it or anything. As long as you hit continue in that section, everything that you've done from that section will be saved. So this is where I will send out information with this exact setup in the fall, once you have all of your updated information for rank and class size and your GPA and all that good stuff. So I'll send out what the number is for your graduating class size as we go into your senior year. So usually after the first week, because we have usually some late additions and stuff at the beginning of the school year. Your class rank is going to be exact. And again, I will put this all in an email as we go through. Your GPA scale reporting, if you are reporting your unweighted GPA, it's going to be on a 4.0 scale. If you're going to report your weighted GPA, it's going to be on a 5-point scale. The common question I get with this is, which one should I report? It's up to you. I mean, generally I say report the weighted GPA, in terms of things, that's the higher number. It shows your weighted GPA. At the end of the day, they're going to see both because both GPAs are on your transcript and they get your official transcript. So I recommend putting weighted, but it's totally up to you. You'll type your weighted or unweighted GPA in here, and then you'll list which one you're using. The next section is going to be when we start talking about your courses. So the courses that you're putting in here are only your courses for your senior year. Everything else is going to be done through your transcript, which we will send. There are some schools that are going to have you self-report, and I'll show that to you guys in a second. But this is only for your senior year. When you put in the schedule, the easiest way to do it is to do it based off of quarter. And you're going to report how many classes. So because like some quarter classes and things, say you might have like 10 classes in your senior year. So you'll type the course title, the level, which again, I'll send an email out describing these things for you. But level 3 is college prep. Level 4 is advanced college prep, so advanced on here. And then level 5 is either honors, dual enrollment, advanced placement. So that is dependent on the class, but there's a drop down here and you can put what you need to in on those. Any of the like elective classes that are unweighted, so like service learning, for example, you're just going to put regular standard. So you'll go through and put your entire senior year schedule in here, course by course. Keep in mind when you're doing your course selection and stuff, if you submit applications, say in November, and you change your schedule drastically for second semester, you do need to report any schedule changes to the colleges that you applied to. I usually will kind of run interference with that. So if you have questions, you can definitely come to me first. We can talk about any schedule changes that you're making and if it might affect your status for your applications or your acceptances. So, know that schedule changes are a bigger deal in your senior year, and you shouldn't just be kind of doing them without kind of having some forethought and also knowing that you're going to have to tell colleges. The honors section is a place for you to put academic achievements. So this is You know, if you're going to be a New Hampshire scholar, which I'll send information out when we start doing scheduling as to what the criteria for that is, so you can make sure that you have the certain classes in. If you won a book award, if you're a National Merit Scholar, you know, any type of academic award that you've won would go in here. Community-based programs, this is just if you've gotten free assistance from any community-based programs. They just ask how many, and then if you do, it's going to ask you to put in what programs. And then future plans, these are very general options. So there is an other and undecided. If one of the general options fits, that's fine. But each college, when you start to put your schools in, is going to have more specific questions that are asking you for like majors you're interested in, things like that, that are specific to their school and what they offer. So they don't put much stock in this in terms of, it's just kind of what you're thinking. And then what is the highest degree that you're looking to earn? So if you are going into psychology and you know that you're going to go on to get your master's because you want to be a school counselor, you can definitely put that in if you know that it's something that you're going to have to pursue for the field that you're thinking of. The next section is super important, and this is testing. So the reason I say this is super important is because this gets some kids in trouble sometimes in terms of how you put this in, because so many schools are test optional. So if you are not planning on submitting your SAT or ACT scores to schools, you should not self-report them here. So you're just going to put no, that you're not going to self-report, and this you'll be able to hit continue and you'll be done with the testing section. If you put your scores in here, colleges are going to see them. So even if you choose to go test optional, because a lot of them will have a question asking if you want to use test optional in their individual college questions. If you choose to go test optional, they're still going to be able to see your scores if you put them in here. So there is a way to be able to do this so that you can use it for both. So say you have two schools that you have to submit to, they require SAT scores, and two schools that are test optional and you don't want to submit to those. You just need to be very careful with it. So if you're going to go that route, you would hit yes, and then you're going to put in, you know, the information that you need to. So the SAT, and then you're going to hit continue, and it's going to ask for more information in terms of when you took it, what your scores, all that. So if you are going to submit, you need to make sure it only says yes for the schools that you are submitting to that require scores. If you are getting to your test optional schools, you need to remember to come back into the Common App section and click no. So that stuff all goes away. If you go back and click yes again, it's still going to be there. It saves it, even though you're not submitting it. So you just need to make sure that the schools that you are submitting to say yes and have the information there. The schools that you don't want to submit to say no when you are going in and submitting your application. It's not a live document that the schools get, they get a PDF. So you making changes after the fact. So say I have a school that requires test scores. I put it in, I hit yes, I hit submit. And then I'm applying to a test optional school next. When I come in and I hit no, and then I submit to that school, that test optional school won't see my scores. And the school that I submitted to previously will still see my scores on the PDF. It's not a live document. So they're not going to go through and be missing your scores or something because you changed it after the fact. The other piece that I just remind students of, and I say this in every junior meeting, so you probably have already heard it if you've had your junior meeting already, is that the high school does not submit your standardized test scores. It is the student's responsibility to do that. So even if the college says that they accept scores from high schools, we don't submit them because we can't track who is submitting scores and which scores they want submitted. So it is the student's responsibility to send them. And just be cautious that some schools will be okay with you submitting on the Common App as a self-reported score. Other schools are still going to want you to have official score reports, and they should list that on their admissions requirements checklist, whether they want them official score reports or self-reported. If they want official score reports, you need to send them through your College Board or ACT account 2 to 3 weeks prior to the deadline for that school. It's not going to mean, so if say you come in and you add a school late or you forget to submit scores for a school until the day that your application is due, it doesn't mean you can't submit your application. You still submit your application. The deadline is for your application, but it is going to hold up them reviewing your application until they receive those scores, which could be 2 to 3 weeks after you send them. So just make sure, that you're being aware of what the requirements for each school are and you're sending things when you need to. Okay. The next section that is important is your activities section. So you have 10 spots to be able to fill on the activities section, and it breaks it out. So it asks you, for what the activity type is, what the team, so I put in sports for the first one, what the team is. But if you put in art, it would just go straight down to asking like what if you had a position of leadership, or if there's any type of description that you have of a certain position that you may be held within the organization. You can put, if it's an outside organization or a certain club that only Portsmouth has, you can definitely put in the organization name here. And then you get 150 characters to be able to give a brief description. If you were playing sports and you played varsity basketball, they know what varsity basketball is. You don't really need to go too in depth in terms of things here. If you are putting down community service opportunities and you need to explain what it is that you did for community service, this 150 spots is going to be important to kind of show that. If you get to a point where you're like, oh, this doesn't get explained really well in 150 words, that's when it's really good to talk to Mrs. Donovan and have it be something that she also might explain in her counselor letter of recommendation. So that's something you want to put in your counselor letter of rec form and highlight. So I had a question. I'm confused. Is the testing tab filled in by each school? No. So everything that's on that I've showed you so far that's on the Common App goes to every single school. That's why it's important that you pay attention to whether you're submitting your test scores or not. In a minute, I'll show you the school specific pieces. So when you add in colleges, they'll also have some additional questions that are specific for their school, but everything that's listed on the Common App goes to every single school. Would activities done over the summer be included here, such as volunteering? Absolutely. It's anything that you did in 9th through that you plan to do in 12th grade. So this is another question I get, like, well, I'm on the track team. I plan to do it in senior year, like, because it asks for grades and everything too. You should put that you're going to be doing it for senior year. They will take that into consideration. So yes, and it's going to ask further down when you did it. So you can put that it's in a school break, how many hours you spent doing it, and how many weeks per year. So if it's just a summer thing, you can say it was over 8 weeks. Or if it's something that was through the entire school year, you can put like an average for how much time you spent each week, even if it fluctuates a little. Because I have some students are like, oh, well, I work 40 hours a week during the summer and only 20 during the school year. That's a place up here where you could put that in and explain that and just average it out under the time hack here. How early should we submit the counselor letter of rec form? That's a good question. It's something that you can actually do right now. So I would highly recommend, if you have some time, to do it now. It's on the Google Classroom. You can fill it out now. Ms. Donovan will start letters of recommendation in the spring because there's 250 of you and one of her, and she'll probably be writing upwards of 200 letters of recommendation, mostly in the fall. So the sooner that you can get it into her, the better it is for you, because she also will start writing those. And if you have to update anything on that form, say you did more volunteer hours over the summer, you want that to be included, you can definitely shoot her an email and just tell her to add it. Different seasons of the same activity be considered separate activities or the same. So you would put them as separate activities. If you are running short on space, because there's only 10 spots to be able to put in activities, and you wanted to try and combine those to kind of show both, there's definitely a way that you could do it. But if you feel like you can get everything into that you need to with the 10 spots, you can separate them for sure. If you personally don't want to put SAT scores in with, will the schools still be able to access my scores through Naviance? No, schools do not see, even though we put your SAT scores in Naviance, and you can do your resume and all those surveys that you do and everything, schools do not have access to Naviance. When we send everything through Naviance, they get it as a PDF format, and they only get what we send them. So anything that's in Naviance, they are never going to see. So that's why we say, like, we don't do anything with SAT scores, because we don't want to be sending scores to people that, or to sending scores to schools that people don't want them to see. Okay. And I did have a question earlier about references in schools that are good for kids with learning disabilities. That would be more of an individual conversation that we can have during a junior meeting. Or if you've already had your junior meeting, we can definitely chat specifically about that too. So shoot me an email after the meeting, blind@sau52.org, and we can set up a time to chat about that, because that's harder to do without having a like back and forth conversation with your questions. So the activities area does have 10 spots. And if you feel like you need to go over those 10, a lot of the schools will have like a free write area at the end of their stuff that, you know, you can add additional pieces and stuff. But when you're focusing on this, like, students are like, well, I volunteered for 2 hours one time at this place. Like, that's not really what you're looking to put on here. This is like, you want to start with the things that you do most often that are the highest in terms of like total number of hours and time spent, and work your way down in terms of that. So, you know, the hope is that 10 spots will really work out for you in terms of being able to get everything in that you need to. All right, so the next section is the writing section. So the Common App does have a required essay as part of the Common App that goes to every single school. So this one essay will go to every school that you submit to using the Common App. The prompts are on here, but one of them is always write about whatever you want. It's any topic of your choice. The prompts are there to help you write. They're not there to stop you from writing about a certain subject or to make you write about a certain subject. So, you know, I tell students this is really something that you should be starting to think about in junior year. A lot of the English 11 classes will do these. If you have an English 11 class in this semester schedule, take it seriously. Take that assignment seriously, because it can really help you in the long run. And it's the one area on the Common Application where you're going to get to talk about you and show the admissions rep something about you that they might not know otherwise. So this is not an area for you to list your accolades again, or list what clubs and activities you've done, or anything specific to your, you know, volunteering or anything like that. It's a time for you to really think about what characteristics are already shown in the rest of your application materials, and figure out what's not coming across that you really want that admissions rep to know about you, and then to tell a story that shows that. It's 650 words. It's not a lot of space. So, you know, ultimately, you know, you need to kind of be concise about it and pick one topic to really focus on. I see sometimes students try and go through like their whole 4 years of high school. It's not enough space for that. It's not an autobiography. You need to kind of just pick one thing and stick with it and be consistent within that whole story. The disciplinary history. So this is up to you to report. We don't report, the school does not report disciplinary action to colleges. There's a spot that we can say that we don't. And additional information. So this is new this year. They ask if there's anything that has happened throughout COVID-19 that's affected you. I think that pretty much every student should be able to write something in this box, because, you know, academically, socially, mentally, like, this past year has just been tough on everybody. And I think that, you know, it's not a place to, you know, complain about how academically things went, or blame anyone or the school for how things specifically went, for what classes we offered, or because you were virtual or anything like that, because that will come off as though you're kind of making excuses, even if it's totally valid. There's a way to do this, to talk about you and your experience, and to show the admissions rep that, you know, this was a difficult time for you for whatever reasons that you have. And that needs to be the focus. So, you know, generally speaking, I think most students should take advantage of this opportunity to just talk about their experiences in COVID and how it affected them. And the admissions reps like to read them because it gives them even more insight into a student's life and the things going on around them and stuff. Like I've had students that they had to watch their younger siblings while doing virtual learning and stuff, or were continuing to work because finances at home were difficult, or just really struggled being at home without all of their friends and stuff. And so, schoolwork and all of these other things kind of were difficult to get through because of it. Those are all valid things to be able to talk about because they did influence the past year of your academic and extracurricular and everything records. So it gives that lens and allows the admissions rep to be able to see some of the things that were going on in your life that affected that time. So the next section down, that's the last piece on the general Common App, is courses and grades. So this is an area that will only show up if the school is requiring you to self-report your transcript. So I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. So when you get to a point where you are looking to add schools into your list, and you want to start to kind of check things out, you can come in here and you're going to type in the school name. If they're on the Common App, it's going to pop up. If they're not on the Common App, it won't show up. And that's when you go to their website. I'm choosing UMass Amherst because they require self-reported grades. So you would come in here and you're going to add to my college list. So now when I go out to my colleges, it's going to show up here and I'm going to be able to look at the questions that are specific for UMass Amherst. But the other piece that's going to show up now is that it's going to say that I have one college that's requiring me to self-report my grades. I'm not going to lie, self-reporting your grades is a pain in the butt. Every school does it a little bit differently. Some schools that don't use the Common App are even worse because they don't give you a lot of choices in how your schedule is set up. And ours is a little bit different than most people's block scheduling. So when you get to this point, I'm not going to go much further into it because it's honestly just confusing. It's much easier to come and do it with me. So I can provide you with your transcript if you want to do it on your own. If you can figure it out, that's totally fine. But if you have any schools that are looking for you to self-report your grades, I highly recommend that you either set up an appointment with me or you schedule to come into one of my task sessions and we can just go through it together. I usually only have to go through one grade with you, with students, and then they can do the rest themselves once they see how it works. But it's much easier to do it in person than it is to try and show all of this because every school is a little bit different. So once you've added colleges and you go to my college tab, you can click on the college and there'll be a question section. And this is where the school specific stuff is. So anything that you answer that is under the school is going to only go to that college. So this is where they talk about like the terms that you are looking to start, what majors you might be interested in, if you're looking to pursue financial aid, the family pieces, usually if you had any family that attended that school. Residency will come up for any schools that are state schools. So you will, if you apply to UNH, this is going to be a question and you're going to have to provide information for residency. So there is also going to be the possibility that some schools will have additional essay questions, which will show up here also. The other thing is if you're applying to a school for architecture or some type of art program, this is where underneath questions, it's going to show up for you to be able to upload your portfolio because a lot of those schools are going to have additional requirements that you're going to have to provide a portfolio. And a lot of them use a particular program that I'm spacing the name on right now, but it works in with Common App so that you can log in right through here and be able to upload everything. Okay. Recommenders and FERPA, you only have to do this one time. I'll go further in depth with this when we do all the Naviance stuff. Your FERPA rights are your educational rights. So the high school cannot send any of your school specific, your transcript, your letters of recommendation without you waiving your FERPA rights, because it's basically saying that you don't want us to send your school information and you're not allowing us to send that personal information on you if you don't waive them. I can't physically send stuff in Naviance if a student does not waive their FERPA rights. So that's if you have any questions with that, if you're concerned about it, it's a conversation we can have. But know that if you are good with us sending your stuff, and again, we don't send discipline records because that's the most common question I get, that you do need to waive your FERPA rights here. And you have to do that in order to actually even link your Naviance and Common App accounts. Okay. Once you're done with everything, so when you're done with whole sections, it will give you a check mark next to everything. Once you're done with absolutely everything for school, you'll get check marks next to both of these, and you'll be ready to review and submit. When you're done everything, there's gonna be a little button here that says review and submit. You can click it. When you click the review, it's gonna bring up a full PDF. You need to review this. You will catch some minor errors and stuff at least one time because you can go through your whole Common App. Once you've reviewed the entire thing, there'll be a button there that you can submit. You'll hit submit, and then it'll bring you to the payment screen to be able to pay the application fee. And you'll hit submit after you add that in, and that's it. Everything goes in. So just be aware that some colleges do have additional requirements, like I said, so like sending your SAT scores or any other specific things that they might need that aren't through the Common App. So keep a checklist for each school, print their application requirements page and use it as a checklist, put it in a notebook, find a way to organize it because every school is going to have something a little bit different and they're all going to have a little bit of a different deadline and how they kind of want things. So it's really important that you kind of pay attention to all of those. And the kind of last piece that I'll say with that is talking about the different deadlines. So there's going to be 4 different deadlines, major deadlines that you're going to see as you kind of start to go through the application process. The first is going to be early decision. Early decision is financially binding. If you are planning on going early decision to a school, you do need to email me in advance because I have to sign a waiver saying that I've spoken with you about the fact that you're going early decision and that it's financially binding. So if that's a plan, shoot me an email in the fall so we can kind of chat about it and I can sign the waiver and be done with it. I don't generally recommend early decision for a lot of students unless finances are not an issue and you'd be fine paying the out-of-pocket price because you're never going to be able to get another financial aid letter to be able to compare your school to any others. As soon as you get accepted early decision, if you go early decision to one, you can only submit to one school early decision. If you get accepted, you have to withdraw your application from every other school. So it is important that you've really put a lot of thought into that and that it's 100% where you want to go. The most common application deadline that most of our students take advantage of is early action. Early action is not financially binding. You can apply to as many schools as you want to. And the big difference with it, it's a lot of the same deadlines as early decision, but the big difference is the financially binding piece. The positives to early action, they don't accept more students early action or anything like that at most colleges. The benefits to early action is that you're going to find out earlier. So you're going to know usually around Christmas break or shortly after Christmas break so that you have more time on the other side in the spring to be able to make some decisions and go back and look at schools again and kind of really look at everything. Regular decision the deadlines will be mostly after Christmas. And that's usually January 1st. To February 15th. And those, are totally fine. I tell students all the time, if you are looking at some schools that maybe you're on the bubble and you really want your first semester grades to be included, it might be a better decision to go early decision than early action. So that's, something we can definitely talk about if you have questions on that. The other piece with regular decision is you might not find out until like late March, whether you got in or not. And that basically gives you a month before most schools deposit deadlines on May 1st to make a decision on where you're going. So it does speed up your timeline. We also go very in depth with a lot of the scholarship stuff for local scholarships in second semester. So to try and do all of your applications for schools in addition to all the scholarship stuff in second semester is a lot. So I generally do recommend that students go early action if they're ready and they have the choice to and they feel confident in submitting their materials at that point. The last one that you might see is rolling, and rolling means that they'll accept applications until programs are full. And some of those schools might give a priority deadline. So they might say, we're rolling, but our priority deadline is January 1st. That means that they're looking for you to try and get your stuff in by January 1st. There's no right or wrong with admissions deadlines. It's totally up to the student in terms of kind of when you have things done, when you're comfortable, when you're ready to submit. But if there's questions on that, I can about specific schools or specific circumstances for students, I can definitely have individual conversations about things like that as well. So those are kind of the big pieces. I will say the only other thing to keep in mind, we talked about recommendations. There is a place on here to be able to ask for recommendations when you start adding schools. Don't use it. It confuses things because we have Naviance. So all of your recommendation requests, your official requests will go through Naviance. I'll do that all with you in the fall, but you can be talking to teachers. If you know that there's certain teachers that you're going to ask for letters of recommendation, you can start having those conversations now, and we'll put the official requests through Naviance in the fall. So that's definitely something that we can take care of then. Those are kind of my highlights for tonight in terms of the application piece. I will say, in terms of how admissions reps read applications, the transcripts obviously are going to be a high priority, as well as their essay. The majority of admissions reps that I speak to say that those are the first two things that they look at, is the transcript and their essay, and then they go and look at the rest of the application. That I'm not trying to stress any students out with the essay piece, but it's not something that you should be writing the night before it's due. It's definitely something that you need to start over the summer and really work on and get to a good point, like going into the fall and everything, so that you can focus on the application piece as you get into the fall and filling out all those applications and the school specific things and some of those questions and stuff. The most common questions that you're going to see with some of the schools, if they have other essay questions, a lot of them will do short answer questions that are like 250 words that are more specific to like, why would you be a good candidate for our school? Why are you interested in a certain major? So they're more specific to the school. You can't reuse them like you can with some of the Common App stuff. So that, I believe, is going to conclude our presentation tonight, unless anyone has additional questions. All right. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it. If there's anything I can do, if you have questions individually, anything that's specific for your students, feel free to email me. And I will be seeing any students that I haven't so far in junior meetings. If you haven't set one up, go ahead and do that through my calendar invite.